Hey, everybody, welcome to 80's Horror Podcast. I am Rebecca with my lovely co-host, Jonathan Moody.
Hey, how you doing?
And we are talking about a movie that I picked. So we are toggling back and forth this year for every episode. And we both picked 5 very eclectic movies, might I say. Very wide array. And so I decided to start with one of my favorite movies of all time, American Werewolf in London.
I can tell why this is one of your favorite movies of all time.
And I know this is a podcast, but I do want to show John what my wonderful boyfriend got for me. He got me the NECA Ultimate Kessler. And it's probably really hard to see on the camera, but it actually is interchangeable heads. So it's the werewolf, but it's David's head. And then there's the head of the werewolf you can put on it. So I will eventually unbox this once I get over the honeymoon phase, but
of having it. Yeah, I get it.
You know exactly what I mean.
Well, I mean, are you one of those people that like to keep the stuff? Okay, as I can notice some of the stuff is out of the box in your background there, but do you like to keep everything out of the box or in the box?
It depends. Okay, so what you're looking at, of course, is my Barbie collection. I can't leave a Barbie in the box. I've got that weird Toy Story thing where I feel like a Barbie that wasn't open and played with didn't fulfill her life's destiny or whatever. So I'm really weird about that. But when it comes to horror stuff like NECA figures and stuff, a lot of times I do just leave them in the box because the way they have them in the box is perfect for display.
Right.
I mean, most of them, because they kind of look like a VHS box. So you open it up and it's, they're organized the way they should be and everything. So I don't open them a lot, but I'm running out of room too. Every nook and cranny.
But so you're a really big fan of this movie. When was the first time you saw this movie?
Okay, I don't know when the first time I saw this movie was, but Grandma here is going to tell you guys something. So this came out in 81. I would have been 5 years old. I wouldn't have seen it when it came out. I was scared of everything. Totally scared. Until Thriller came out, I really was scared of anything horror. And then Thriller kind of broke me, like it did for a lot of kids of this generation. But when this movie was being made, every night at 7:30, Entertainment Tonight was on the TV. And when this movie was being made, Entertainment Tonight did this whole thing about Rick Baker and this transformation and how they were doing it, and a little bit of behind the scenes, a little bit showing what it was like and everything. And I was super intrigued. I was probably scared shitless at the time, but in retrospect, I was very intrigued that how much was going into it. And then I had a huge crush on David Naughton. When I was little, I don't know why. All I really know him from is the Dr. Pepper commercials. Yeah, I had a really big crush on him.
That's how John Landis found him, apparently.
Yeah, and he also got fired from the Dr. Pepper commercials because he showed his wang in this. But
I did not know that's why he got fired. But all right, well, interesting.
But I was just very intrigued. I don't know the first time I saw it. And I don't know that I even fell in love with it the first time I saw it. This is one of those movies that every time I watch it, I just fall more and more in love with it. And about 7 years ago, at my local drive-in, because I am fortunate enough to have a local drive-in that supports indie horror and horror in general, 35 millimeter preservation. I got to watch this at the drive-in on an original 35 millimeter print that was theatrical rotation.
Oh,
and it was so super cool. I just got goosebumps saying that.
Yeah, that sounds really awesome.
It's just really cool. And this is one of those movies, there are so many movies, especially for horror fans, that you're oh man, I remember Hellraiser. It just scared the crap out of you when you watched it before. Now you watch it and some of the lament configuration, when it shoots lasers and shit out, it's just so bad now.
Right.
You can still appreciate it, but you're wow, that's just we've gone leaps and bounds. This movie,
you look at the original Star Wars, I'm sure when it was unaltered by CGI and everything, it looked like crap back then, but that was, at that time, that was amazing. You didn't see anything like that. And then
but this is still a movie that the effects, the Oscar for special effects was created for Rick Baker. This is pretty much the advent. He, according to John Landis, and I don't know if this is true or not, he Rick Baker coined the term special effects makeup.
I saw that, and
I don't know if that's totally true. Yeah, one of the little vignettes.
I would say so, maybe, because even though we've had special effects people beforehand, even the people that did the makeup for like the original Wolfman and stuff like that, special effects makeup, I guess, was something that probably had not been used since maybe an American Werewolf in London and some other, because even in to go back to Star Wars, which Rick Baker did work on as well, the original Star Wars, it it was the term special effects was not used, and then
it's not like he invented the genre or the discipline. He just apparently coined the term,
right?
But it is still something that's still amazing to this day, and I love watching those behind the scenes things to see how they did it, because it's still inventive. It's still something I think a lot of special effects people still strive for. There's so many people who do werewolf movies who would kill to have a transformation as good as this, even with CGI.
He said something about that too. I saw like the little mini documentary that was I guess done after after like the new Wolfman movie that he worked on and everything. So he was talking about how he wants to do that, like have the regular makeup effects mixed in with the CGI.
Right. You use the best of both worlds. I think that's fair.
Yeah, but make a different transformation that nobody's ever seen again. And he wants to do that once more. I would, fuck man, if I had money, because werewolves are like my favorite I guess subgenre of horror. I don't know if I ever told you that or not. But I love werewolves. Like, they just, for some reason, they're just a lot of fun. Even the bad ones, the ones people in their masks or whatever. I adore that.
Yeah, and this one has some different things. So we both watched the Blu-ray. I don't know who put it out or whatever, but the Blu-ray has like a more modern interview / documentary with Rick Baker, but there are also a couple vignettes from, like, one is behind the scenes of that they filmed at the time and it was put together at the time. The other one, I think it maybe was like a promotional thing to send to theaters to get them to pick up the movie or something. It was like kind of all about the movie, but then like behind the scenes too. And it was very like commercially. But it was all like super fascinating to watch that stuff. And I know that's some of the stuff that I saw when I was a kid.
Well, are you talking about the one that had like, it showed David Naughton actually getting the stuff, the cast and everything.
Yeah.
That was so funny because they were like, and here's Griffin Dunn, a co-star, watching, as blah, blah, blah. And I was like,
and they made it comedic. Like, there were some comedic things that had the same tone as the movie, like whatever the voiceover guy, everything he was saying kind of went with that, because then they included John Landis doing his own stunt through the window and
it was so great.
Yeah, so I have a lot more appreciation for that movie the older I get, the more movies I do, of course. And I'll never work on a movie of this budget, but they were super inventive. And
don't sell yourself short. You might work on a movie of this budget or more. You
never know.
Yeah, so if you say you're not going to, then you're not going to. But if you keep that in the back of your head, so
maybe someday,
maybe.
That was kind of one of the things that they talked about was John Landis was like, I don't want to make, he grew up watching the Wolfman and everything, and Rick Baker too. And they really loved the Wolfman, but like, why does the Wolfman wear pants? Why does he walk for 2 feet? Why can't he drive a car? And they're like, they wanted to make the person turn into a wolf. And something that I think all of us figured, but like had never been displayed before, is that's gotta hurt.
Mm-hmm.
The fingernails coming out and the hands, the elongating, the snout coming out, like all that stuff. It's gotta hurt, and it really captures it because he is not happy.
And we'll definitely get more into that. But I do want to mention that I did hear Rick Baker in one of the special features talk about how he actually originally wanted it to be the walking on 2 legs,
right, like a
Wolfman.
biped.
Yeah,
Yeah.
just like the original Wolfman, because I mean, they were working for Universal at the time. I mean, it
There's
kind
a
of made
million
sense.
references to it.
Yeah,
It definitely would have been a movie that they grew up on.
but I'm so glad that Landis didn't do that because, I mean, how many of them have you seen that do it? And most of
Yeah.
the time, it looks terrible. And the way that him wanting to kind of show all that stuff, and I love the fact that they did it with Blue Moon of all
Yes.
like songs, like because like it
Yes.
just starts because at first you hear Bad Moon Rising, and you're just like, oh, this is cute. Right? Like
Yeah.
he's bored trying to find food, or he's like, I'm not hungry, and he's whatever.
Yeah.
And then then you hear Blue Moon, and it shows the moon, and you're like, uh-oh. And then it pauses for like feels like forever on him just reading his book. And then out of nowhere, he's like, fuck, and just starts.
Yes.
And you're like, you can feel his pain.
He just keeps going back to the refrigerator going, I'm not hungry.
Yep.
I'm still not hungry.
Why was he not hungry though? Like, I'm guessing
because he had turned into a wolf. Like, because that's usually a thing. I think when he's in the hospital, he doesn't want to eat.
Right.
It doesn't actually make him sick. But like in a lot of movies, it would make them sick to eat human food, which doesn't make any sense because dogs wouldn't get sick. But he wants.
Yeah, dogs love human food. That's all they want.
Yeah, he wants flesh, I guess.
Yeah, he wants to tear people apart.
Mm-hmm.
But it's understandable. Okay, well, we'll get into a lot more stuff. There's some stuff I want to talk about, but I think we should probably go into like more of the story. Then throughout the story, we'll be talking about certain scenes. But
right, because I do have a tendency to geek out about this. So you keep me on the rails. Okay?
I'll try to. So, like I said, it hadn't been. I'd seen it in my 20s. I'm now 40, so I'd seen it in my 20s. I don't know. I remember liking it and think it was kind of cool, but not loving it. And then you're right. I think like the next time I was like, oh my God, this is so amazing. I bet next year if I watch it again, I'll be like, oh my God, this is even more amazing. Right. But it starts off these two American backpackers who are, I guess they're going on a tour of Britain, right?
Well, they're doing the, it's kind of the American pseudo-American dream. Like you get out of high school before you go to college, just go backpack through Europe.
Yep.
Which is what they're doing. Try to go have some fun, get into some debauchery, stay in some hostels, get laid, get drunk. Yeah. Have a lot of stories for when you go back home.
Yeah. Which I mean, a lot of movies later, like Hostel, to kind of did like their own version of this movie in a way. So I think this movie, John Landis did say that there was a lot of movies that got inspired because of this movie that weren't good, or whatever. And that probably shouldn't have been inspired by the movie. But I get it because like for him, this was a horror comedy, this was so this was a chance for them to kind of tell a different story. But so
I mean, it's a horror comedy, but with a lot more gore and a lot more seriousness. And apparently the tagline was from the director of Animal House, here comes a whole new animal. And I think people thought it was going to be hilarious. And when they first start, when the guys are like, they're in that sheep truck, and then they're just like, they're just having their little silly talk about, like the one girl that, that Griffin Dunn wants to bang and, and all that stuff. It is very like just cutesy and comedic, and so it does give you the tone of like, oh, this is going to be funny.
Well, which I liked because like him talking, like everything that happens in the movie comes back some sort of way or whatever. Like it has a purpose. Yeah. Like them talking about that girl he wanted to bang. Later, he mentions that she ends up hooking up with somebody else after his funeral.
Right. She cried at his funeral, but hooked up with some dude from the funeral.
I thought that was so cute. It was like such a funny like bit of like, what would it be like if you were fucking dead? And you whatever. So that was really cute.
And they don't really hang on the two of them doing their little shtick for very long. but they do it effectively. So you really do care about these kids, and you think that you get the impression they've known each other, because they talk about they've known each other since like middle school or something. And so you're already invested in their relationship, and they do it really effectively in a very short amount of time.
Exactly. So they're going through there, and they wander up to this place over here, the slaughtered lamb, which is my favorite, like just my favorite thing of like, I don't know if it's because I've gotten older and I've seen so many other more movies and stuff, but I have way more respect when I saw this now than I've ever had before, of like them going to the pub and seeing it called the slaughtered lamb,
and it's got the wolf head, bloody wolf head.
And he's just like, where's the lamb? Right? Like, oh God, what are we getting ourselves into here? And they walk in, and John Landis said in a thing, like, he didn't think it would work when he did it. He was hoping it would work, and it did work. But what he was worried about was that there was going to be like people going, oh, this is like a Western, where people walk into a saloon and everybody just turns and looks, at the people, like, every music stops, people stop playing darts, all of that stuff. And how many other movies, like Paul and I just watched a movie. I'll fucking say it now, even though you guys will have to watch it. They'll listen to our comment, our review of it, probably in a couple weeks after this airs. Is called Die Hard Dracula, and in Die Hard Dracula, it's about a guy going through Prague, and he ends up going into this pub, and everybody's eyes just look at him. Right now, there weren't that many people as there were in this movie, because probably money. You know, but I was just like, when I saw that now and then just saw this, I'm like, I get where a lot of,
but it's funny that was like, well, the unintention, I guess you could say, like he didn't want it to be that way, but I didn't see it that way at all. Like, I mean, if you've ever been in a small town, you've ever had to stop for gas and ask for directions in a small town, and you walk in somewhere, I mean, that's what people do. I mean, I grew up in that kind of town, that if you weren't from there, if you didn't look like them, be like, what you doing here? It's just the quaint British version of it.
Yeah. So they turn around, they look at them, and they're like, like, who are these people? And like, from the very second, you can feel that these American guys are unwanted. They don't want to be there, which is strange, because I mean, they're like, who are these people anyway? Like, they're just people who live there in that town. I mean, like, what?
Yeah, this is kind of a point. I've never really discussed this with anybody, but it does kind of bug me that all they have to do is let the kids stay in there. They don't, like, sending them out inevitably will lead to their death. Leaving them in there does absolutely nothing. I mean, and maybe it annoys them. The one guy, he messed up his darts, because they actually, like, they point out, hey, you got a wolf's head in your sign, and you got a pentagram over there. What's that all about? Big deal, and even the barmaid, she has a lot of compassion. Obviously they do too, because they go out after them to look for them. But I don't understand kind of why the kids were ousted so fast.
Right.
I mean, they may not like them, but I just don't see why they would send them out to slaughter. No pun intended.
Okay. So another question that now that it sort of bugs me right now, and now that you're getting into that, so they let them go out, into the wild, and they get attacked by the, and that Griffin,
because they're dumb teenagers. Well, they're college age, but keep clear of the moors, beware of the moon.
Right.
Very first thing they do is step on grass, and then they're halfway through, and then they're like, be clear of the moors, beware the moon. Like,
yeah. And they're like,
dumb Americans.
They said, oops.
Yeah.
but see, what I'm trying to get at is, like, there's a scene where, they save David from being completely mauled to death by the creature. However, I mean, because he got bit, he's got turned into the werewolf. Why didn't they just shoot him? I mean, I guess that's no movie, but like, other than that, why didn't they shoot him? Because, like, technically, if they knew that he would become the next wolf, right?
Well, maybe they didn't realize that he had, I don't know. Maybe it's, maybe they didn't realize he had gotten his mauled as much as he had. Maybe there's a like a spectrum of like, it's not like you get bit or you don't get bit. Like maybe there's a gray area or something. I don't know.
No, the only reason I say that that's not true is because later the doctor goes to investigate, runs into them.
Yeah.
And then they're like acting like, oh, he's still alive. He's still, oh my God, he's on a, like they knew.
Maybe they just, yeah. And that's the other thing too. They doctored him up and they made up the whole story about the lunatic and everything else before the cops ever got there, of course.
Right. Because I mean, the guy was naked, but like, is a naked guy going to go around and slaughter people? Like, I mean, that right. And he was supposed like a lunatic.
Right. Like, yeah, he escaped from an asylum or something and ended up in the middle of, some little tiny burg. Sure. Whatever. Yeah.
Well, I mean, I would love if, I mean, I know people hate like prequels or whatever, but it would have been cool to see the guy beforehand, or like how he got turned into a wolf and then became a lunatic in a,
or just how it all started in this town, like the historical thing. That would be kind of a cool thing.
Yeah. I mean, I know they did something like with the Thing, like they did a prequel kind of story, but like that wasn't very good from what I've heard. I've never watched it. I only watched the original Thing. Well, John Carpenter's original Thing. I didn't watch the Thing from whatever.
Which is a fabulous movie, even by today's standards, by the way. Mm-hmm. Not the Thing. The Thing is, but the Thing from Another World.
Yeah.
It's a great movie. I actually saw that at the drive-in the same night I saw American Werewolf in London.
Nice.
I was pleasantly surprised.
Well, anyway, so like, so I mean, there's little things with this, but no movie is perfect. There's going to be little issues or whatever, but
you can't question why like small town people do what they do, and
I mean, they have the pentagram, meaning like what did they call it? Like they call it Pinta something or whatever.
Yeah, they called it something else, but
pentangle or something. I don't know, whatever. They got it wrong. Obviously, it's a pentagram, and but they called it a 5-sided star originally. And I was like, oh, why don't you just keep saying that? Like that sounds cooler anyway. And so they had that, and I love it that they asked that question. That's when he like messes up on the darts. He's like, hey, what's that star doing up there? Mm-hmm. And then
I never miss at darts.
That guy was great. Yeah. And apparently it was his first feature film, and
nice.
He did a good fucking fantastic job. He was like talking about in the behind the scenes how he was just like waiting for kind of like he had that big break. Finally, he was so excited. And then he noticed how that scene, that him saying the lines, was like his scene. So that's why he did it so like slowly, because he knew it was going to be a close up of him, and it was going to be very important. And that's why
this is like your 5 minutes right here, dude.
Yeah, you better stretch it out as long as you can. And it worked really well. Like it was perfect. And I mean, every cast, they had a bunch of English guys, like like 98, like if there was 100 people, 98 of them would be English. And the only Americans were David and Griffin.
And I want to say that David Naughton was the only one who had to have a visa. So Griffin Dunn, I don't know if he has like dual citizenship or if he's British, but the only other American in it is Frank Oz, and he actually was born in Britain, so he was a dual citizen.
Well, what about there's Frank Oz, but there's also what's his name, Jim Henson. Is he like? Do they count because they were? Like
no,
they were Muppets. Like they were on the Muppet show.
Yeah, I think it was just like they're the actors, the main actors.
Yeah, I think it was just the main actors.
Yeah. I mean, obviously like John Landis was American and stuff, but yeah, just as far as the cast goes, he was really the only true American.
They said that didn't actually count because he was also the director. So, he could actually act, which is, I mean, it was a strange thing that they had this, like, I guess they had this incentive to do it in England. But I mean, it was perfect because Werewolf of London, and I mean, if you watch all those movies, even the original Wolfman, it takes place in that, in Europe, so it's
and it really gives you a good fish out of water type thing, because the discomfort for an American audience to be not just in a small town, but like a small town in another country, it kind of actually makes me think too, can you imagine being like mortally wounded in a foreign country and being like subject to their healthcare? Like, I would feel very uneasy and very uncomfortable being like in a foreign hospital where things are done differently. Like, that's another like layer of just weirdness.
So yeah, so we'll get to that part. So they send him to London for his hospital stuff, because he's already been attacked and mauled. And he's there. He meets the nurse who he falls in love with, Nurse Alex, I guess. And she was I loved her to death. Like,
she's adorable.
She
is absolutely adorable.
She was adorable. She was sweet. She was everything. Like, I got it. And then what is it? And then the doctor. One of my favorite scenes in the whole movie was them talking about the I believe that the embassy guy's a Jew,
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, stuff like could not be talked about today.
No.
Some of the stuff like you just could not do today. But I thought it was amazing. And then
and he's been out for 4 weeks, almost 4 weeks to the day, coincidentally.
Yeah. So, oh no, another full moon is approaching. So, which this actually made me like smile, because so many movies you see a werewolf movie and they go on past the full moon, because like it's like 3 or 4 days, and I'm like, no, wait, this is wrong. You need to have like them. What?
It's like 2 days, right?
Yeah, it's 2 days.
2 days.
Technically, I mean, yeah, technically 2 days, because like the first day of the full moon, and then the second day it's almost, the full moon's almost gone, already, so you only get like 2 days to basically have this, and they did it in 2 days, or whatever. So he's in the hospital bed, and he's kind of having these weird ass dreams, fucking amazing dreams. I'm like, oh my God. Yeah. I mean, I get it. Like, I would be like freaked the fuck out if like I was having dinner in a dream and all of a sudden my family were slaughtered by like
we're watching the Muppets and here come Nazi zombie
Muppet
creature things. Yes.
Like, I don't know. It was so strange. It was like these people in these masks, they were going around killing everybody, and it was such a strange dream. But I was like, I was like going, what the fuck? Just like they probably, when they were making it. But so he's having all these weird dreams. He's getting closer to the nurse, which I liked. And then he's about to, right before he's about to discharge, and it's a couple days before the full moon, of course, his friend visits them. And God, his friend looked amazing.
Yes. And if as he goes on, every time we see Griffin Dunn, he gets a little bit grosser every time.
He's decaying,
Yeah, and there's like pieces of skin falling off of him after a while, and oh man, it looks great.
It would be like what you would look like probably if you were in the ground at, after like in a couple days, because from what I've understood, when you die, like all that stuff like sets in quickly. It's not all, it doesn't take like years and years. You decay pretty freaking quick.
Now, I would like to think that they would have like patched him up for the funeral, but that's okay. Maybe it was just closed casket. And
God, that's so sad. Maybe. I don't know. Like, how would you patch him up though? Like,
they can do things, like a lot of putty, and
I would close casket that bitch, because I don't think you could really do that. I would not want to have my family, see me like that. But yeah, so it was, oh man, it was rough. And somebody was pointing, I think it was Rick Baker was pointing out that you could see like a little dangling of like his flesh or whatever, and like people would start noticing that and stuff and point that out, and that's all they would watch. And I was like, I didn't see that. Like, I'm very not like observant when it comes to a lot of that stuff. I mean, I did obviously observe that he was decayed and it was looking bad, but I wasn't noticing that. And then they pointed out, now it's probably going to be the
only
thing
thing you're going to see.
Only thing I'll see. But he was talking and he was having like a normal conversation, like, hey buddy, blah, blah, blah. And he's like freaking his friend out. And so of course,
but of course he's a little pissy with him because he did just run instantly.
I mean, I hate to say it, like if I had died getting attacked by a wolf and my friend, I mean, what is my friend going to do? Like attack the wolf,
But you got to be a little like, wow, thanks. You had my back.
You had my back there.
You might be a little pissy,
A little bit, but then again, like he was really nice to him throughout the whole thing. Even telling him that you have to kill yourself now. He was really nice to him. Like he's just like, dude, we can't have you keep killing people because you keep killing people. They're gonna come back just like me. In limbo.
And this ain't fun.
Yeah, that's exactly what he said. This ain't fun. And I was like, yeah, I'd imagine. So it was kind of cool because you don't really see werewolf movies with zombies. You never really see that.
Nazis,
and,
zombies,
zombies.
Kermit and Miss Piggy, and
that, I mean,
you got a little bit of everything.
That must have cost them a little bit of money just to have that, like have.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't realize this till like very recently that the Muppet Show was actually filmed in London. It was supposed to take place in New York, like a rundown New York theater, but it actually all was filmed in London, and they were there. And so the little line when Frank Oz, who's the embassy guy, he's walking out, he's trying to talk to David, and David's being a dick. He walks out and he goes, "These kids, you try to give them what they want, then they just don't, they're just not happy with it." Like that was actually a little nod to the fact that the Muppet Show had just gotten canceled. That was his little like F you kind of thing, which is funny but sad.
It's funny but sad.
But they were there, and obviously, Henson and Oz did a lot of puppetry for a lot of different things, a lot of different movies. So
they didn't do the puppetry for this movie, I don't think.
Oh no, I don't think so. But I think it was just a matter of they were there,
but there was puppets in this movie, and we'll probably get into that in a little bit.
Oh, we will.
So to keep going with the story, so they basically decide he's got to leave he's got to be discharged, and she wants to make sure he's okay because he's kind of acting a little kooky.
And he's cute. He's a cute, mysterious American.
Right. So she's like, "Why don't you come stay with me at my flat?" And I was like thinking, doesn't that get you in a lot of trouble? Like, even a little bit of
conflict of interest or something.
Yeah, but
fraternizing with the patients. Who knows? But you know what? I think they were glad just to get him out of the hospital too, though.
Well, I don't think they so none of them, when they discharged him, they didn't I'm sure she told her friend, the heavier set woman that was in it, because the doctor comes in and says, hey, has Dr. Alex seen him since he got discharged? And the lady looks over and goes, I don't know. And you could tell that meant yes, she knows. And
wink, wink.
Yeah. And then she comes in and says, yes, I did. So anyway, and you could tell she thought, oh, I must be in trouble. Instead, it's because the doctor had gone and investigated.
Right. Yeah. He's starting to figure things out.
Well, yeah. Well, the more we forgot to mention, I guess, that the more he explained, or the guy explained David explained what happened to him, didn't really jive with what the original whatever,
like the report.
Report was there was no way a man like a fucking psychopath could rip out somebody's neck like that,
right? And that guy was elderly and scrawny.
Yeah
there's no way that a guy like that could have done that to two able-bodied young guys.
But at first he's dismissing it because the cops dismissed it, because he thought, well, if the cops just dismissed it, those cops, we forgot to mention them. Those Scotland Yard guys are just the worst cops I've ever seen in my life. They are inept,
yes.
Because the one guy is just trying to get this over. He just doesn't want to do paperwork or something. And he's just like, rrr. The other guy is just doing whatever. And he's trying to like kind of disagree with the guy, but that's his boss, I guess.
Yeah.
He's just like, can't.
Or at least the senior partner or something. Yeah. He's just kind of like, okay, whatever. I'll go along with it.
There was that awkward, like the guy shut the door and then he goes to like go out the door and he almost like bumps into it. Did you notice that? Like, when you were watching it, I was like, what in the world? Like, what is that? I guess I was supposed to be for comedy, but like,
I think they were sort of the comic relief, because then when they go to visit the doctor for the first time, he's like, would you like some tea? And the one guy's like, oh yeah. And then the other guy is like looking at him like, he's like, oh, okay. No, I guess I don't.
Yeah, like it's so strange. There's some little strange bits throughout it. That it was just like they were supposed to be kind of the comic relief during this stuff. And then the whole time they're just like, no, it's okay,
Yeah. They're just kind of stupid, slapsticky kind of
characters.
Yeah.
And they literally thought, well, those were witnesses, so they said that that was like murder, so
Hey, dude, they're London police. They probably have worse stuff happen on the daily,
maybe, but
on their own beat,
maybe, but
I
mean,
hey, look at me giving them the benefit of the doubt.
Well, it's that, and it's also it's the benefit of the doubt, but it's also like they were London police officers, right? Like that was their thing. They weren't the police officers of that particular little small town. So they were probably just called in because that town maybe didn't have a police department or didn't have really
right. They're just like, this landed on our laps. It's stupid. It's just like, this petty little thing that we don't care about.
Like you said, like they're probably just like, I don't care. Like, let's.
We had 4 prostitutes murdered last night. I don't care about this American kid who was somewhere he shouldn't have been.
Right. Well, they do start worrying about it when the wolf strikes. So so they get back home or get back to her house. Things are going good. Like they're hooking up. He's
got a
happy.
Little moon dance going.
Yep. And then he hears his friend after he wakes up, and he starts talking to him, and the friend is more decayed this time, and it's just like, dude, you gotta kill yourself, man. I just thought to myself, man, that's like, what would you do in that situation? Like, right,
because you're already like, I'm crazy, I'm talking to my dead friend. You're already doubting. Is he right? Is he right?
is he am I going to turn into this thing? Am I not?
Yeah.
And like they said something in the behind the scenes that it was like the idea of I'm glad I watched the documentary, this was amazing, but like it was the idea of you dealing with a supernatural element, right? That you yourself are smart enough to think that supernatural things does not exist, then you're face to face with it. What do you do? Right.
Like, yeah. And you also know you've been through, like, if you're smart enough to know, I've been through a very traumatic event. I was in a coma pretty much for 4 weeks. I probably have a brain injury. Am I, is it up here? Do I have issues in my head, or is it really happening?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. You'd have to wonder.
You have to wonder. And,
but Jack does make a very good argument. So
he does, even in his decaying form, he was pretty much like, dude, you got to kill yourself. And, like, this is the only way we can stop this from happening. And, you're going to change. Like he says that, like, you're going to change. You're going to turn into the wolf. You're going to kill. And I mean,
boy, does he.
And the girl's trying to help him too, like, like kind of figure this out, but like, what can you do? Like, I mean, whatever. Anyway, he ends up like letting her go to work. He has that gets locked out of his house. Sees the dog and the cat both not like him, because he's a wolf. He smells like the wolf or whatever. And so they're like, at him.
You would think the dogs would like him.
No.
Or do you think the wolf is like a predatory type of thing towards a dog?
Yeah, well, no, because like
canine, yo, solidarity.
you have dogs, right?
Mm-hmm.
You walk dogs.
Yeah, true. They see another dog.
They start barking or growling at them. It's more of a like protecting my
territory. Yeah, those little girls were
walking and they were all smiling and laughing. I was like, the fuck? Like, why were they laughing about this? This is not funny. To me, this is scary. When my dog growls at another dog, I'm not happy about that. I'm not, my dog doesn't, and because he's just a little toy poodle, so he just kind of walks around. But if you growled at a dog, I'd be like, hey, stop that shit. Right?
Yeah.
I wouldn't be laughing about it, but I guess they're teenage or not teenage. They're
like little girls.
Little girls. They're like 8-year-olds.
Right.
So they're
on their own on the streets of London walking their dog. But hey, we won't talk about that.
Well, yeah. So they end up. So he ends up sneaking back into the house, which I was wondering if that was some kind of subplot thing or something, but I guess it never really comes back, or whatever.
No, I think it's just part of the comedy and the foibles and the, oh shit, I locked myself. It didn't really have it. I mean, I'm sure there was a reason for it, but it didn't really come back into play.
No. So he sneaks back in the house, even opens the door at one point, and I was like, why did he leave the door open like that? I guess it's maybe cold air.
Maybe it's trying to show that he's like comfortable where he is.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Maybe,
And so he's, that was the Bad Moon Rising. We get to hear that song, which I forgot how fucking dark that song is.
Yep.
It's sung,
but the tone of it is really upbeat. The lyrics are not. Yeah.
The lyrics are like, I'm gonna, something about murder. You're gonna murder tonight and shit like that.
Yeah. Don't go around tonight. They're bound to take your life because there's a bad mood on the rise.
Exactly. And so I'm like thinking, oh God, what's going on here? And I was like thinking, uh-oh. And I think it was supposed to throw you off as to like, what was going to happen to him? Were we going to see it then, while they're playing Bad Moon, Bad Moon.
I don't even know if it was to throw you off. I think it was almost like that, like to jar your senses, because they're still playing this song that's super like, you're just like, you hear that song on the radio, you're like, do, 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 do. Like it's just that juxtaposition between that song being really upbeat and what's happening to him. It's just I love the contrast of those two things.
Yeah, it worked really well. I think it's because of John Landis, honestly. I don't think many directors would dare like go there, and do that. Or maybe they would try, but they wouldn't be able to do it like he did. So we get that scene. Amazing
transformation.
Well, and it kind of sets up like you go back to her work and you see her interacting with kids, which was another thing I was just kind of a little thrown off about. Like, I didn't know if this kid had anything to do with like whatever. I guess you just nice to
I think it was just cute, and it shows that she's just it's just a cute little interaction and everything. Just showing she's not worried about him.
Right.
That's another thing too. She's just having her
back to work. Yeah. She doesn't think anything's going to happen to this dude. And did he, I guess he might've thought maybe, but like he wasn't doing anything. I was surprised they didn't have one more scene with the dev, like with him there at that scene, right before it happened, of him going, come on, man, kill yourself or something.
Right. Yeah. But then, it's happening.
It's going to happen. You're going to turn, but I'm glad they didn't, because instead we get Blue Moon.
Yes.
And it starts out with the wolf or the full moon, showing the full moon. Then, as I said, all of a sudden, fuck. And then help me. I'm so hot.
Yeah. So
off his clothes.
The hair growing, the snout growing. That was the one thing that I know you saw in the Rick Baker thing. He said they worked like months on the snout extension. They had like 3 or 4 different puppets, and all of a sudden they worked all this time, and then they were like, it was like 10 seconds on screen, and they were so disappointed until they went to the premiere, and like everybody was like clapping when that happened, and they're like, okay, I guess it's cool.
Oh, they got really happy about that, because like they stood up and they like cheered, because I mean, it looked really fucking cool, like, I mean, I get it. But like, I love how Rick Baker, you're right, I saw that thing, and Rick Baker was like, we worked months and everything on
building these prosthetics and everything else,
and then all of a sudden John Landis would shoot 10 seconds of it and then be like, cut, all right, we'll move on, we got it. And he would go, wait a minute, what do you mean you got it? We need more. And he was like, no, we got it. And they did not. And that means John Landis is a great director who knows how to save time.
Okay, but in saying that too, we do have to address the the elephant in the room, that John Landis and his want for things to be a certain way, and for them to be fast, and for them to be grandiose, also got 3 people killed from the Twilight Zone. So yeah, I mean, so you could say great director. I always kind of wondered, like, I kind of always have a weird thing. Like, I appreciate his work, but yeah, I have that in the back of my mind. I'm like, you killed Vic Morrow, dude.
You could take some more time and whatever. I get it.
Go for it. Safety is paramount. And
but I mean, I guess in this movie, there was nothing that had nothing to do with safety. But you're right. For that, when it comes to a safety issue, time is right. Very much appreciated. Yeah, because
cannot cut corners. So
no, I get it.
But we're not talking about that. We're not talking about him.
And look,
his work as a whole. We're talking about this.
That was definitely an accident. Like, if anybody ever brings that stuff up, usually I'm always like, because like there are people who are really upset about that sort of situation, and they will hate on Landis for that. And I usually say, look, it was an accident. It was not, look, he did cause that problem, but he, like, nothing like that has ever happened since, for him. And he's still a fantastic director. Like, it was just a really bad situation. And I'm sorry for everybody that happened to, and everything. So, but
anyway, back to this movie. Yeah. But yeah, the transformation is great. And then he goes out on the town, which is another thing that I didn't realize till I watched, because I got this Blu-ray like a couple months ago when my internet just totally tanked. I was like, I realized how many movies I didn't have physically. And I was like, oh my God, I don't have American Werewolf in London. So I got the Blu-ray.
I just got the Blu-ray too, like recently, which I showed you, and you're like, oh my God, you got to watch the extras and stuff. And I did.
But one thing that I didn't realize that I really appreciated was that when the werewolf, and this is a little bit more like the second time he's unleashed, but like when the werewolf is running around, it's still a guy in a suit with his hands in the front paws, head in the head. And then they've got him laying on like a table, which is why you never see the back legs of the werewolf, because it is actually a guy running with his hands, and they're pushing him with that table.
Like a wheelbarrow kind of thing. Like, it's almost like a wheelbarrow.
Yeah, I thought that was really cool, because I'm like, they could have just easily used like a puppet or an animatronic or something. But for it still to be controlled by a human and, well, a group of humans behind him.
Right, exactly.
I thought that was really cool.
Yeah, I loved it. But there was some animatronics, I think, for some of the puppet stuff later, like when you get to see the actual creature, when you just see the creature itself, like making like at the later on in the porno theater and stuff, where he's just like, right?
I don't know. Like, I mean, I was under the impression that they were like, no, we didn't build like a puppet, like not a puppet. We didn't build like an animatronic. It was always a guy in a suit.
Okay.
And even when Griffin Dunne, which we talked about puppets too, like when Griffin Dunne is in the theater, he's completely lost all his flesh. There's no way they could, they've been building up his flesh the whole time. with all the prosthetics. So they had to do a puppet, but it was still Griffin Dunn actually controlling the puppet. Mouth.
Yeah. While he talked or whatever.
Yeah.
Which, actually, rewatching it, looking at that scene, there are a couple times where it doesn't necessarily match up, I thought. And I was like, oh crap, because now that I know it was a puppet, it looked a little weird, like when he like moved and you could sort of hear it. Like there's one point or whatever that I was like, that doesn't necessarily match up.
Yeah, I still didn't notice that,
but anyway, so yeah, he's out on the town. That was one of my favorite parts of the whole movie, him going into London, because I mean it's called American Werewolf in London, right? And so I was like, oh god, I'm glad it wasn't like all set in the hospital, because they didn't have enough
Jason
money.
Takes Manhattan, Vancouver.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, it was very much London backdrop. They had Piccadilly Square. I mean, it was definitely.
So he texts these two poor, like very sweet, very nice, like couple that are just going to their friend's house to have have dinner, I guess, and they get attacked and eaten. And then the guy, I just love that scene. That's one of my favorite scenes, is the guy's like just has like his like little bourbon or martini or whatever he has in his glass, and he's just like, oh honey, I'm I wonder why they're late, or whatever. Yeah. And they're like, oh my god, there's something going on out there. It was like, oh, nothing's going on.
Yeah, they're just like British yuppies.
Yeah, and then she's like, why don't you go check? And so he goes to go check, and he's like, hello, is that you? Blah blah blah, out there. And then he's like, and then he goes squish.
Yeah.
I just cracked up. I was like, oh god, what did he just step in? like I was expecting him to go, oh my god, my shoe.
Yeah. Oh, do you have any Grey Poupon?
But yeah, so stuffy yuppie guy, and then
the dude in the subway, or the tube as they would call it, I thought that was kind of weird. I always think that's weird. Like, what is there ever like a time of day or night in London that there wouldn't be people in the subway?
Yeah, that was a little question of mine, is like, why was this guy the only one that got like let off the train or whatever, and and everything, and why
we don't have panhandlers or or anything, or we don't have like a few drunken party goers. We don't have anybody. It's just kind of weird.
Yeah, it was completely empty. It was almost as if they like had an empty lot, and they were like an empty subway, and they were just like, yeah, let's just, you know what I mean, or something.
Yeah. Notice all the Wendy's posters. I only noticed this the last time. In the subway, there are a ton of Wendy's posters.
Must have been
I don't know. I don't know why. There's also See You Next Wednesday posters, which we'll get to in a minute. But yeah. I don't know if it was product placement or not.
I think it was product. It has to be, because you can't use Wendy's. Even back then, you probably couldn't use,
right, like they would have had to have covered them up or something. Yeah, it had to have been product placement.
But that's better, because I didn't even notice them, and they got their product placement. So you noticed them, but I didn't notice them. I didn't notice them, but like they got it, and most people probably might not notice that, or whatever. Yeah. The people that are watching it like 10 times, 20 times, whatever, they'll probably pick that up and be like, oh, that's really cool.
Suddenly I want to shake in a very waxy yellow cup. I don't know why.
But let's talk real quick about that amazing scene of him going up the escalator. Yes. And we follow him up the escalator. And see, this is funny, because we did Evil Dead the last time, right?
Right.
And Evil Dead was like my favorite horror like film or whatever, and then this is your favorite horror film, so it's kind of perfect kind of thing. But I feel like this movie is one of those films that you can definitely talk more about than Evil Dead. I don't know, because there's so many cool like things in the whole picture of the movie. There's so much going on. But this scene, like them going up there, do you know, like, I don't know if you listened to like some kind of, I did not get to any of the behind the scenes of this shot, but like, did they use a another escalator or something, like one that actually also went up, because that was fucking cool. Like they were following the guy up the escalator.
I don't know. Yeah.
So I'm wondering if this would be a question I guess I'd have to ask John Landis how they did it necessarily. But my question is, did they actually remove the my dad pointed this out, maybe they used a button, that makes it switches it up so it goes up instead of down,
maybe.
I didn't know if you could do
that.
I
don't know. I just seriously didn't even consider it. But yeah, it's a cool shot. But yeah, that
it is a cool shot, because if you think about it, you can't, if you're going up the stairs, even if the stairs are not moving, right? Going up the stairs and following somebody that's going up an escalator like that, it's got to be difficult unless you are literally on the same same step, as the other person across from them. Then you can get that shot. And that's what I think happened, is I think they either took I don't know if there's ever been a situation,
or they have a really, really, really big dolly that just, which that could be it too.
That could be it too, because they did have a lot of money. So,
but that was a really that was a really tall escalator, and yeah, that whole thing, and some of it's maybe forced perspective to a certain extent, because you're looking up the escalator and it just seems like it's infinite,
right? And you're also watching this person going up the escalator and you're following them. It's such a fucking cool shot. And I was just like, wow, like, I mean, if there was ever a shot that John Landis has done that's very much like a Hitchcock style shot, that would be it to me. Like that,
probably.
As a filmmaker, I'm like, oh, like I wish I could shoot something like that. I mean, I probably could if I figured stuff like that out, but it was just really good. And it's quick, it's not it's not like, a minute or 2 minutes, of that. It's like literally like maybe 10.
Boom, 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 boom.
Yeah. And it happens, but it worked so well that I was like, oh my God, just like the transformation, just like all these other cool, like, little shots. We forgot to mention also I guess after, I don't know if it's after the subway guy, but there's also the group of people, the old men who are just hanging out with their dog. And I don't know about you, but I know we've talked about dogs getting killed and everything. Thankfully, we never see anything, or we don't even hear the whimper. But we do hear a funny line where they're like, "That's not Winston." I was like, no, duh, that was a fucking growl. Like that was definitely not Winston. But yeah, it was kind of funny. And so they die, and all of them become, zombies.
They become like Jack.
Yep.
And then David wakes up the next day naked in the wolf pen at the zoo. And this is one of my favorite sequences of the movie, where he's like naked, he's like walking around trying to figure out what to do, and
goes in the bushes. It's very cartoony.
Yeah, right? And he gets the balloons from the kid, and he's like, a naked American man stole my balloons. Like, what? And he takes that coat, and he's just sitting there like waiting, in this like women's coat,
Did you notice I posted that line on my Facebook last night?
Oh no, I'm off. I'm banned from Facebook for 3 more days, so I kind of have been avoiding it.
Sorry.
Yeah, I bullied a meme, and I got cited for bullying. So
well, I get in trouble all the time because I say the word kill on Facebook and they don't like it. And I'm like, I'm you can say kill, like I killed somebody on what is it, or I'm going to kill blah blah blah. You can literally say that in a post. You comment that, you're banned.
Yeah.
I'm like, I like, these bots don't make any sense, but whatever. But I usually say it with horror. It has to do with horror. It's like, kill her, mommy, or something, and then trouble.
Yeah.
Oh, anyway,
whatever.
sidetrack.
Yeah, that's one of my favorite sequences of him trying to get back to the apartment and everything. And
he's in the coat, and she's just like, "Where did you get that coat?"
Yeah.
When he talked to the English boy, I thought, oh my God, that's so creepy and so weird. Nowadays you would definitely
they wouldn't do that.
Nowadays you definitely not have that scene, because I mean, he's literally naked right in front of that kid when he steals the balloons. So I'm like, Jesus Christ, you can't do that these days. But whatever, they did it back then, and it was perfect. It was so funny, and it's such a weird thing. But yeah, they go back. He goes back home and tries to explain, and he's feeling good about himself, something he doesn't understand what happened, but
he feels energized or reinvigorated or something. Yeah,
the power of the wolf or whatever.
Right. Yeah.
He's he's got all this energy, so they decide to go see the doctor, and that's not going to be a problem until they find out on the news.
Hey, there were a bunch of murders last night.
And what happened? And so now he's freaking out, wanting to get the cops to arrest him.
Yes. Prince Charles is gay.
Charles is gay. Was it the stuff about Queen Elizabeth is somebody is a faggot,
that was Prince Charles. That's all I remember is that one. But
it was so, oh my God, it was such
he can't possibly get arrested, which is hilarious. And really, if you think about it, this is where the third act starts, basically when they find out about the murders. The third act starts, and it is one of the shortest, most action-packed third acts in a horror movie.
Yeah.
Because I think at that point in time, I think you've only got about 15 minutes left in the movie.
Right.
Well, maybe 20. Because he goes to the movie theater that we keep talking about, and Jack introduces him to all the people he killed the night before, which is hilarious, as they watch the bad porn See You Next Wednesday.
Right. Yeah. She saw a bunch of that signed or whatever. And
yes, and that's a thing that he plants in all of his movies. There's a reference to See You Next Wednesday in all of his movies.
Okay.
Yeah.
Even his first one, Schlock?
Yes.
Okay. Yes. Probably started there then. Okay.
Probably, I would say. But yeah, there's always a little bit. This one, obviously, now we actually get to see what this movie is, which is the most idiotic porn ever made.
Oh God, it was so. That was the funniest scene.
I'm sorry, I have the wrong person.
It's even weirder because he literally saw what she looked like, and then she's like, I don't know you. And he's like, sorry.
Oh, sorry.
He walks away, and then David looks at his buddy Jack, and he's like, good movie.
Yeah.
What the fuck are we watching?
You've got the gamut of the couple that's pretty pleasant still. Oh, hi, they're all just mangled. Hi, but then you've got this
nice couple, and then
the subway dude's just pissed off. They all are in varying points of whatever, but they're all like, oh yeah, it's well, how am I going to do it? Oh, how about a gun to your head? It's they come up with all these ways for him to kill himself.
And then he's like, what if I hung myself? And they're like, oh, you probably just choke yourself to death. And they're like, well, why doesn't he just choke himself to death? And he's like, and he was like, this is my friend. I'm, blah, 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 right? Which I'm like, even in death, he's being very sweet to his friend who, once again, his friend didn't kill him. His friend just didn't help him survive,
but he would have died as well. But but it would have been, now that we know this, we know that it would have been better had he died. But again, we wouldn't have this movie.
It kind of sucked that it was literally if they had just waited 3 more minutes, those people would have came and shot the wolf before before the friend got killed.
Again, that's movie.
Well, yeah, otherwise there would be no movie.
Right.
But yeah, so anyway, or maybe they did. I mean, maybe they were just waiting around.
Maybe they were waiting. Well,
yeah, they wanted one guy to die, and then they were like, oh shit, let's save this one, because
shifty little bastards. They are.
I don't know, they are. Well, I mean, you could tell when they did talk to the doctor, and the doctor, and they were very like,
they didn't want trouble. They didn't want trouble for them and their little town and whatever the hell was going on there.
I think that's why they were happy that that he went to the hospital in London. Like, get the fuck away from us.
Yeah.
We don't want this American guy around here anymore. So anyway, we're in the porno theater. They're talking about how to kill each other or how to kill him. And then he turns. That's when he turns into the thing, and he can't help it. He hasn't been able to figure out how to kill himself yet, and so he turns into the werewolf, and
he does like a blob homage out of the theater.
Yeah. And my other favorite bit is like guys just comes up, because at first it sounds like he's literally like jacking off to the porn, right? So he's making all these noises. So the, I guess, theater checker guy is checking on him, or whatever, and staring at him. He's like, "Go away!" Like, I'm turning,
right? Yeah, like it's not what you think. Really, it's not.
Look, my hands, they might be hairy, but
that's not why.
But yeah, so anyway, so he turns into this thing and eats the guy, eats the theater checker. I guess somebody sees it, or whatever, they call the cops. The cops come in, and the one cop's like, "Whoa." I thought he was gonna get eaten. I was so ready for him to get killed, but they shut the door, they slam it on him.
And then basically we have like a Springfield fiery mob kind of thing. Like everybody just is like, "Hey, what's going on at the theater?"
I know. And I'm sorry, but if you hear there's like something on the other side, like, why are you going towards it? Why are you staying there? Go away, like run,
Mm-hmm.
So, but
because they were all onlookers too. Like none of the civilians were actually trying to help the police blockade the door.
They were watching, like, what's going on over here? Yeah. So then it escapes and runs off, and then you see this awesome running of it, and everything through the town, and eventually it gets into like cornered into its own thing, and the cops are there, and the girl tries to talk to him,
right, because we didn't mention this before, but they were talking about the Wolfman movie at one point, and then he was talking about the only person that could kill him is somebody who really loved him in that movie.
Mm-hmm.
And so then that's when, this is the most abrupt ending, like, of any movie that I can think of. He's cornered. She's like, wait, I'm going to go talk to him. She's kind of looking at him like, David. He's kind of doing the puppy head tilt, like, and then she's like, I love you. And then he gets shot. And it's over. Like, that's it, and I know there are a lot of people who don't like that ending. But I'm like, I like it. That's the only way it can end. How else is it going to end?
Yeah, he can't survive, like he can't, he can't keep, because, like,
right. He can't have like, what are we going to do? Like, okay. And then he runs away, and then they run to, Madrid. And then we have the sequel, American Werewolf in Madrid, where he has to get chained up every 4 weeks or something. Just whatever scenario you can come up with is stupid.
Yeah, like, and we can talk about this. There's the American Werewolf in Paris, where it was. That's actually the first one I saw, because I don't know. I was a big fan of Tom Everett Scott when I first saw it, because I love Dead Man on Campus and whatnot, and so I watched it and thought it was kind of dumb.
I probably saw it and have just pushed it out of my memory.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't remember much about it either, but I do remember seeing it. And I remember seeing it before I saw this one. And of course, this movie is just amazing, and it ends with him dying, and that's the only way it can happen. Like, as if all those people are going to find peace, if there's not going to be any more murders happening, that he has to die. And I really love, we forgot to mention, he does go to a phone booth and speaks to his his sister, and he's trying to tell her like, look, tell mom and dad I love them. And there's this like really heart kind of like it's a brother sister like
because he's like okay young. And she's just like being kind of a butthead to him, and he's just kind of like a butthead back, but like okay, come on.
I'm trying to be sentimental here.
But yeah, it's a very tragic ending, but it's a very beautifully tragic ending. I mean, I don't know, I dig it.
I was wondering why. I mean, maybe it's money issue for them, but why wasn't his parents there on coming to see him if he's been in the hospital for so long?
Well, okay, it is across the ocean. They do have 2 younger children at home, and he is in his 20s. I mean, he is technically an adult, but yeah, it does seem like the parents would be there when he was getting released or something. Maybe they were there and then they just left. I don't know.
Yeah, you never know. You don't know.
Yeah, I thought about that too, because like even if I'm like 45 and I'm in a hospital somewhere in a coma, I think my parents would like get on a freaking plane,
right? I know my parents would, and but we. I just don't I didn't understand that. But then I was like thinking, now that I'm thinking about it, it's probably because they're going to get any more Americans, which, or
just it was superfluous to this story, because if his parents were there, then we wouldn't need Nurse Alex.
Right. They would have just took him home, and then it wouldn't be an American Werewolf in London anymore. It'd be a American Werewolf in London,
or in Idaho, or wherever the hell they're from.
For a bit, but then to Idaho, which is, remember, Jason Part 8 should have been called Jason Takes a Cruise to Manhattan, which this movie did take, a lot of it was in the hospital, getting to know things, whatever. Then finally, actually in London, you get to see London and everything, which is a lot of fun. So, I mean, all in all, I'm very glad you picked this movie, because it was a lot of fun. There was a lot of really cool stuff set up for it. I want to eventually listen to the commentary with David Naughton and Griffin Dunne. I've loved Griffin Dunne ever since I first saw him in My Girl, which I used to love that movie. I used to watch that movie on repeat all the time, and he was one of my favorite characters. He was like the teacher that she had a crush on or whatever, who obviously couldn't date a little fucking child, and stuff or whatever. So he, so it was like so cute, the movie. And so when I remembered that Griffin was in this movie, I got really excited. I couldn't wait and he is so great. He's so wonderful in this movie. And David Naughton, who I've met at car conventions, he's just the nicest guy in the world. Like, if you ever, I don't know if you've ever met him at any.
I have never met him. I would probably swoon still. I mean, he's kind of a silver fox now. I mean, he looks completely different because he's much, much, much older, and he was so like dark haired, whatever. But yeah, I'd probably still swoon.
He's such a sweet dude. Like, he's such a nice guy to all his fans and stuff. And even though I'm a more fan now, so like I can't wait to see him again and be like, I might be a little like, oh my God, like a little fanboyish, kind of thing. Because I really adored him in this movie, because him and Jack and Alex make this movie,
right. Without them, without them, it wouldn't have like the heart and human aspect.
Yeah, I mean, all the rest of the characters are wonderful, like the doctor and everybody at the pub, and all the people that he kills, what I mean? Like, everybody's awesome, but like those 3 really just make this movie something special. And I'm very glad, because what I remember hearing is that Universal wanted a name, they wanted somebody big in that role. And I think that would have overshadowed the movie, honestly.
Yeah.
I think that people would have gone to see it because, let's use a more recent name, but like Tom Cruise. If Tom Cruise had been had been the main character or whatever, the main actor, it would have been a Tom Cruise movie. This having been two actors who you don't really know, and you're kind of
they were name enough to but they weren't the major draw for the movie.
Right. The major somebody said once that if you're gonna have a horror film, like a real big horror film, you can't let the actors outshine the creature itself. The creature is what people are going to see the movie about. So that's why horror films are very good at basically introducing us to Jamie Lee Curtis or Kevin Bacon or whoever's in all these like horror movies that at that time had no names, like they weren't big names, but because they were in this movie where they were sort of outshined by the monster itself, the serial killer or the werewolf or vampire, it didn't matter because people are going to see it for Jaws, not Roy Scheider necessarily, that kind of thing. So it's one of those things where I just like looking. I mean, other than I'm looking at this right here as The Shining. Of course, Jack Nicholson was a little bit bigger at that time period than the movie, but he was the killer, so if you're going to be the killer, if you're going to be the monster, you're going to be a big name. I think Betsy Palmer, to use that as an example, who, by the way, I don't know if I ever told you the story, but my mom actually worked with her.
Oh, nice.
My grandma was a director, play director, and for one like thing or whatever, she had Betsy Palmer come in at that time to help do some kind of like workshop or something, and my mom got to meet her and work with her and everything.
Nice.
So I've always kind of like when I told her, oh, I love Friday the 13th because of Betsy Palmer, she always brings up the fact that she met Betsy Palmer and everything. I think that's just the sweetest thing. And my grandma, the same grandma, got to meet Vincent Price on a cruise.
Ooh, wow.
So like I'm so jealous of that. Like we don't have the only thing I would imagine is if I was on a cruise with like Robert Englund.
And that's the thing too with horror conventions and us being kind of like, I mean, we're not like in the industry, like we're not like way up here, but we are in the industry, and like so we have accessibility to a lot of these people that we grew up watching, and bigger names or whatever, and it's like it's not the same. Like Vincent Price wasn't doing horror conventions. You weren't like going down to the bar after hours and like having like a steak, with him.
Like you would with like
you guys
Kane
are just
Hodder.
in the same. Yeah, you just wouldn't, and it's just a different time, and obviously, just different society. But
I mean, it was cool one day. George Wendt was at like one of the horror conventions, and I was at a bar, and he walked in, everybody goes, Norm. And I mean, being in that situation is fucking cool,
Yeah.
As a fan of everything, of movies and television. But like, it's one of those things where like as a horror fanatic, you do get the chance to like meet David Naughton at these things and everything, and tell him gush about how much you love his fucking movies, and shit. Or I like to say Zach Galligan, I fucking was going crazy talking to him, and everything. He's such a nice guy. But that's the thing, I don't think Griffin Dunn's done these things. He hasn't done.
This is really, I mean, he was not a horror guy.
Yeah.
David Naughton wasn't either, but I mean,
he kind of became a horror guy. Like he did Brutal Massacre comedy. He did a couple other horror.
There are people who embrace it, people who don't, and it's cool either way. Just because he did one movie of his whole career that was horror, but just so everybody, there's a lot of money to be made, and horror fans are the best.
Yeah.
But I guess it's time for us to rate this movie, and I forget, what is our scale?
Oh, Jesus. Did we do a scale the last time?
Did we do 1 out of 5 or 10?
I'm gonna say 1 out of 5, but let's do both right now. So
it's a 5 out of 5, 10 out of 10. Crank it to 11. This for me is one of my favorite movies. Is definitely my favorite werewolf movie. It's definitely in my top 5 movies, not just horror movies, but movies of all time.
I would agree with you. Absolutely 5 out of 5 or 10 out of 10. I don't like, even the little small issues I have with the movie don't really like matter. Like they're just so small and minute and the grand scheme of things. This is a really well done movie. Like this is not a movie that like it's a movie that from start to finish they knew what they were doing, and they made something fucking special that nobody had ever done before.
Yeah.
By the way, I do love that I heard on the making of that Rick Baker was talking about how he had got hired for The Howling right before An American Werewolf in London and had the same idea. He was going to basically take their idea of, the transformation scene, and John Landis calls him up and it was like, hey, I got the money for American Werewolf in London. He's like,
yeah, because they had talked about it before. Yeah.
And he was like, damn it. I'm already on a werewolf movie. And he's like, well, you're not using the same idea that we had. And he was like, yeah, kind of. And he was like, you bastard. He said that to him. He's like, you bastard. How dare you like steal our idea, and now it was like, look, all right, look, I'll like oversee this project, but I'll let Rob Bottin, I guess is his name, take over on Howling, and I'll concentrate on Werewolf in London. But I need 6 months with your actors to do like,
because which is kind of crazy, but
I mean, nowadays it'd probably be easier and a little quicker. But back then, I can imagine it wasn't easier to get that stuff, and they had a lot of work they had to do, because nowadays they have like nowadays he just walks in, says, "Oh, let's do this live cast real quick, you're done." But back then it was like probably a bigger, harder thing to do, and I respect this movie like up the wazoo. Like this movie is so fucking good. I can't wait to like watch it again and again and again, because now that I've rediscovered it in a way, and thanks to you and hopefully other people listening to this has seen it and has fallen in love with it as well. If you haven't seen it and you listen to our whole thing, well, go watch it. What
are you doing with your life?
I know, like even if we described it, you need to see the fucking movie. It's amazing. I think what was the next one? I think the next one's Puppet Master that we're going to be doing next month.
Well, whatever it is, it's one of your choices.
It is.
So Puppet Master sounds good.
Yeah, that's one of my favorites. Full Moon, man. Like before Full Moon was doing evil bong movies for the rest of their life. Yeah, I mean when they had money and shit.
When they weren't cranking out movies like they were Trauma.
Yeah, like they kind of went into this trauma stage in their life, which is fine. It's just not the same. So it's one of mine. I think it's going to be the Puppet Master, and I'm really excited for that. We may have a guest, we may not. I think I like it that we do it together. I mean, we talk enough.
Yeah.
Can you imagine if somebody else were here to go on for like another half hour?
Yeah, especially since we picked these movies, both of us have a lot to say about them. So
yeah, and I'll rewatch Puppet Master before and probably listen to the commentary and stuff. I know Charles didn't direct the original Puppet Master, so that's a really fun thing. Is like Charles Band produced it but didn't direct it.
Yeah.
I can't wait. That's going to be a lot of fun. And then the next month after mine will be yours again. So we're going to keep switching it off. This is a 5 out of 5 or 10 out of 10 for me. Like absolutely 100%.
Perfection.
Yep. So thank you, Rebecca. This is awesome. And everybody else, tune in next month for a brand new episode.
We'll have something good for you.
Definitely. Bye, everybody.
Bye.